Welcome, Erin Horn, to SoundPower. Amazing to have you here. Erin is a friend of ours going back. It must be 10 years. And we have once been on your podcast, so it's really brilliant to invite you onto ours. Welcome, our friend.
Thanks for having me. Fantastic to see you, Erin. So happy you're here with us. And I'm really looking forward to hearing, more details of your musical explorations, etc. So it's great. Welcome.
Amazing. And the expansiveness of your musical creative journey from where you've been to where you are now, from global pop hits to being an ambient meditation architect. What a journey. I think on SoundPower, we always like to start at the beginning, and we always ask our guests, why, how, what was childhood like for you, and how did you become the sound enthusiast that you are today?
How did it all start? Well, I harken back to listening to Vanilla Ice in the car and learning it all off by heart at a young age, and then getting banned from listening to commercial radio. Even though my parents were in music, they weren't fans of rap music. So I think that I started to spot dissonance within musical taste and culture and opinions from a young age, and how everybody is a singer in this world, but nobody thinks they can sing. It's that type of thing that happens to us in our early age. We're surrounded by music and sound, and it's our birthright, as a wise master once said to me. I'm quoting Tim there. But lots of people disconnect from it, and I had various forms of connection and disconnection from a young age, because I grew up in a really musical household. My dad was a producer, my mum used to manage him. We owned recording studios. I would get told off because I was annoying Morrissey for playing tennis outside near the studio, and therefore hated Morrissey for a long time for that. So it's been a funny road into music and out of music and in sound, and sort of deepening that connection and understanding how we're physically wired and connected as beings into sound, essentially.
Wow.
All from Vanilla Ice, basically.
Well, amazing. I have to confess, I don't know who that is, but I love the name, actually. Not.
Sing their top line to give Tim a audio.
Yeah, it's the rap song where the guy goes, "Ice, ice, baby," and they've sampled the David Bowie bass line, dum 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 dum, the Under Pressure one.
Oh, okay, right. I know that. Thank you so much. Yeah, no, well, that's a fascinating, seed of a start. I mean, I'm always intrigued because out of so many musicians, I always look at you as being a great philosopher within music, and an experimenter, and someone with amazing vision. I mean, I really respect, what you do create. And on that topic, I'm in awe of how prolific you are, actually, because you genuinely are a hard worker. I know that for a fact. So it's interesting to know, where does your actual, I mean, Cherub, I appreciate we might want to go back to a little bit more of a timeline, actually, but I'm so curious to know, that's really eating me is, what is your inspiration? What is your vision when you are creating and evolving, as I notice as well? That's the one thing I really respect about you, Erin. You keep moving on.
Gosh, that is a good question. Thanks. I mean, I think everybody has their own journey and their own path in this world and in music and in their experiences on many levels. And that's something that I always have tried to follow. And it's quite hard to express the mysteries of why I might be so driven to continuously make sound and experiment and try and push the boundaries. But ultimately, it all leads back to that small voice that we have, that we try and listen to, that says, try it, do it, give it a go, see what it sounds like. Give yourself that opportunity to make a mistake. Just really keeping present with that. And thankfully for me, that's my internal voice has always been louder than people saying, don't do it, or that's not good. No one does that, so don't do it. And jumping back to the timeline of my musical genesis, when in my first band, Sam and the Womp, that did that did quite well. We had a #1 with a catchy track, Bom Bom. That was a sort of it was both amazing and horrific at the same time. I know, because I had to play it so many times that I definitely saw it for what it was, which was, there was a lot of joy in that song. And that, for an example, was a combination of two music forms that weren't being combined at the time, and people had issues with it, and I didn't see that. I've always been driven, like your question, inspired by, I think, the music itself, and just the sound, the emotions and the feelings that come from listening to music. And I must say, I'm probably quite addicted to that now, because I feel like I'm always chasing a kind of hit, not like a successful hit maybe in a bad way, like that kind of dopamine hit that I get from creating and interacting with sound and music, that's hard to get anywhere else. So I think that's maybe the best answer I can give.
You've hit the sonic nail on the head there, from chart hits to dopamine hits, and that's the journey. It's a different kind of chase. But going back to the chart hit, which I love, let's speak a little bit about that, because I remember exactly where I was when that came out. I was living in Miami, and it was getting blasted down Lincoln Avenue. I know it came out around the summertime. I remember that, but I specifically remember it was Halloween, which is massive in America, and it was getting played all the way down Lincoln Avenue, and people were out. I was dressed in a tiger cat suit, full tiger fade. My best friend Chris Barnes was a pirate, and everybody was in full fancy dress, and everybody from grannies to babies were actually dancing to that tune. So that actually is such a pivotal moment in my youth, in my 20s. It was like, it represented who we all were back then, and the joy and the playfulness of it, the creative spirit. It was an amazing song, and I just wrote this down earlier. So it sold over 1 million copies worldwide, #1 on the UK singles chart, and 4 times platinum in Australia. That is mega. And I remember when we used to make music together, us three, you showed us the video of you holding up this boom box, and it was such an iconic song back then, and it still is when you hear it. So it was a great legacy to leave. And obviously you then parted ways with that band, and your journey evolved. So what would you say were your key takeaways from that part of life? Because it was iconic. And has that then informed where you moved next into more the ambient side of things?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely crashed and burned a little bit after that, as I think most people do after some success. It was a bit of a classic story. The band sort of fell apart, after the one hit wonder. But we had a good record. We had a good album that never quite made it out. Tracks from it did, but it kind of, from that, I then did more work in the industry. I did a lot of songwriting, and I guess I sort of lost a bit of meaning for sound and for music, and ultimately I was searching for that, and that's what brought me to your sound healer training, because I guess I'd spent too long sort of chasing the wrong sort of hit, chasing approval from business people, chasing approval from sales, being on the road. It's quite a tough, the flip side of success is quite challenging, because and people always talk about it as a cliche that you do well and then people are on to the next track, but you're still there, and it's that point of identity and music and connection it's important to keep it going, and to do that you've got to have strong foundations. And that's where I ultimately found my way to working with you guys, because I saw what you were doing as being more essential than some of the superficial kind of music for cash that I was involved with. And I was interested in exploring some of the deeper, more hidden, maybe more of the mystery of sound, maybe more of that deeper connection. And that was really meaningful for me. And so I always have thanks to you guys, and obviously I kind of have gone full circle, because from doing that and being very involved in sound meditation and sound for relaxation or sound healing, whatever people want to call it, that also helped me reconnect with the more popular forms of music, with more sort of upbeat music. So it was ultimately quite a connecting experience, you know. And so I'm always very grateful, and I always feel that now the music that I make has some element of that stillness and connectedness that you guys are always working with, you know, alongside some great things that the pop music has as well, that, you know, because I don't think sometimes people get quite um duality. They want to say this music's good and that music's bad, and sure, people can have views, but from the way it looks to science and from the way it feels, is that all music is just can be really fabulous, you know. And obviously we have our preferences. I'm not a massive heavy metal fan, but some people love it, and I don't think it's bad. But I think, yeah, that the way that we perceive music is informed by our experience around the music, the culture of the music. And I think it's great to see that culture now is reflecting more sides of music, not just songs on the radio, you know. And I think more and more people are finding out about the power and the connection of sound and of these deeper, more ancient forms of interaction with sound that kind of lead back to these experiences that you hold and the space that you guys hold.
And I have to say, you know, that is so beautifully put, actually, and that's reflected very much in my awareness of many of your productions. And you create a unique textural landscape that I always love, and it's quite special, actually. The let's say the sonic beauty that is overall there, with very key components that are very accessible and enjoyable, obviously. But I do always feel, you know, again, you know, to give you some praise. I mean, I really do respect the fact that you eat, breathe, drink music, and it's in your veins. I can really feel that. You know, you are a true great musician in that regard, and I really respect the vision that you have overall, and the changes and the involvement that you're obviously creating and making.
Well, his email is peace, love, and audio for a reason. Those are the main three components of his life. And we can say that as friends and teachers, that is literally, you walk that talk. And I always remember in studio once, you told us that the explanation of the Bom Bom or the Womp, it was the Womp, you defined it as the space between the bass and your face. Is that right? Have I remembered that right?
Yeah,
And
that's
what
right. That was
well, you're still doing that, but in your own innovative way. So not only did you transition from, you know, global pop phenomenon into the world of therapeutic sound as we know it, but you brought a bit of that with you, and you do a lot of electronic music that's ambient, aka your, you know, your latest album. I don't know if it's your latest one, but the 2023 one, Opal Blue, had that mix of both ambient and drifty and just this beautiful sonic playground. So it's like you've managed to harness both worlds and create a new place to exist for us all.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm always looking to do, right? Is get inspired and try to connect the dots without sort of just doing things for the sake of doing them, right? But that goes back to the sort of personal journey that we all have. I think we all have at least one song in us that we can sing and can change the world for ourselves and for everyone else. And that's a bit of a mysterious kind of poetic way to look at it. But I'm always telling people when I get talking about music, because I don't always push the fact that I'm involved with music on people, but sometimes it comes up, and I'll always say to people, you know, oh, you can do it. It's not too late. You know, you can still learn an instrument. You can experiment with your voice. We all have a voice, you know, that we can use, and if we sing our song, that song is perfect. And that gets into more of the spiritual aspect of it. I think humans are at home when we're making music and singing our song. And I think more and more, as there's more trouble outside of us and on social media and in the world, it's more important that we can develop and find that space inside, you know, which essentially is a space of sound, you know, and has sound in it, you know. um and try to share that with everyone. And that little album is just my offering of that. And it's such a complex journey, you know. when we visualize these things and how great the music's going to be, it never is when it actually is finished. But sometimes there's just a little seed in there, and that's enough. And I think there's a lot of value in that small amount of vulnerability that we can share through music, and the space we can hold with each other. And that's a special place. And that's why, since, when we started working together, it was about 10 years ago, sound meditation, sound healing was like, whoa, this is some crazy stuff. I remember friends being like, man, I would never go to that witchcraft seance thing you're doing. I was like, well, it's actually a kind of a meditation, but I'm sure but now no, please, Tim.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I mean, it's very well put the way you're expressing it. If that was perceived, we're quite unique in each of our perception, obviously, how we receive and how it touches us emotively and energetically. And I think that's so exciting that you have a recognition that each person has their own inner story that's enhanced by, let's say, your sounds or other sounds as well. And I think the fact that you actually have a purpose and a meaning, you understand beyond the commercial aspects, let's say, of making sound, its overall bigger, broader effect upon both the individuals, I've just said, and society at large. I mean, we are dealing with such an awesome topic, sound music, which I've always stressed it goes so beyond entertainment, which obviously naturally it is, and we all embrace that. But it is also this capacity in the right circumstances where it can be transformational and therapeutic, and indeed change the individual. And my desire, probably yours as well, is that can we change the world for a better way?
Yeah, well said. And that Opal Blue album was, I think, some of my favorite work that you've done. And I learned today that you wrote and produced the whole thing yourself, released it on your own imprint. So how freeing is that? Whereas in probably some other musical projects, there might have been a little bit more rigidity or limitation, but this was all by design from you. So that must have felt great.
Definitely. Definitely, yeah. It's like you gotta just do it, right? And I think, being part of things that were really successful, but then I never really got all the album out, or never got the songs that were meaningful out. It's like the industry's like that. The industry will cherry pick and take things that are of value or they can make money from, and that we understand why. But I think it's great. Nowadays, I would definitely suggest that anybody who wants to make music to do it, and to give it a go, and to also release it. And it's for me, it's less about commercial success and more about like, I guess, being an artist and trying to leave a trail. And you never know who's picking up on it, who's involving with it, and what meaning it has. And those are always valuable stories to hear about how people heard the music, or how it meant something to them, or or how it facilitated something. And that's a big part of it. I'm quite spiritual about music now. I feel I had to, once when I started, I just wanted to have success so that I could do it, and that was such a drive for me, and be able to say, oh, well, that's my song, you might know it, and that type of stuff. And sure, that's quite egotistical maybe, but that's where I started. And I guess it was actually really hard to move past that. And obviously working with you guys was part of that. But meaning and ego is so important. We can't completely remove it from ourselves. We have to work with it, and trying to find a way to work with those parts of myself, and to make music that can still be listened to but still has these elements. That's the constant kind of challenge. But also the art, what I'm interested in is mixing these things. And it is in some ways just getting more and more exciting with AI and new instruments, and a new ability for musicians to promote themselves and share their work online. It's an interesting time. And I think sometimes music is the kind of canary in the coal mine, it was like music was the first thing that really, the internet changed the music business before it changed the other businesses. And I think music is the forerunner sometimes for culture. So it's interesting to see how music's progressing and how AI and how different opportunities and social media is interacting with music and how that might reflect, how culture's changing and how spirituality and people's connection to themselves and community and to whatever power they believe in, how that's also changing and how music is a forerunner of that, I think, and sound. So I'm a bit obsessed with music, as you could tell. Yeah.
And on that piece about the ego, just to reframe that a bit, you best believe if I co-wrote, co-produced Bom Bom and also wrote or co-wrote, co-produced Woman, Doja Cat, I would be weeding that into any conversation I could. And whatever tune you was playing, I'd be getting it in there. And that's not ego. I think that's like a sense of pride and a sense of accomplishment in one's work that you should be truly proud of. Woman, Doja Cat, what a hit. The video was mesmerizing. I'd love to know the process and how you felt being part of that incredible piece of music.
Yeah, that was a funny one. Props to Doja. She obviously made that record amazing, and she's an amazing artist. I met her old producer, David Spretzer, Yeti Beats. I was out in LA at this really intense sort of networky publishers party, and I went to the back to try and hide basically and avoid it because it was getting a bit much. Because I like playing music with people. Talking about music's great, but I really like playing music, and especially if people are talking about music from a business sense, I sort of get a little bit worn out sometimes. So I was a bit worn out. I was just trying to find a little quiet corner and take in some atmosphere, and then there was a guy sitting there with a similar look on his face.
Sorry to interrupt. Could I
It's
just
okay.
say it completely froze this side, and I think because
All good.
my end, we
Mhm.
should go again.
We'll relook
Rob.
the question, yeah?
Yeah. So yeah, I'll just if you just start with your answer, which was about being in there.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. Internet. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, the Doja Cat track, I have to give props to Doja. She really took that instrumental with a kind of vocal that we did, and she turned it into this amazing song. And she's an amazing artist. I met her great manager and ex-producer and friend, or current producer and friend, Yeti Beats, David, out in LA. We were at I think it was a publisher's music party somewhere in the hills of LA, and it was great, but I was a little bit worn out with all the music business chat, and I was looking for a place to sort of take a minute out and take in some atmosphere, and just as I sort of sat down and started to have this moment, there was Yeti, and he was sitting there, and he looked like he'd gone through a similar experience at the party, so we became quite good friends, and we used to make music whenever I was in LA, and I think when the first or second session, a young girl came in the back, and she was very creative, but a little bit kind of embarrassed maybe, or just quite young. I think she was maybe 14 or 15 the first time I met her, and or 16, and yeah, and she was great, and that was Doja, and we used to make records and make beats and hang out, and then yeah, Woman happened. That kind of came down from the stars that night. We're with some people making that song, and sometimes when you make music, it feels really good, and you want to hear it again. And that was one of those beats, and we didn't know that she was going to do it. We didn't know that Pharrell was going to get on it and then get kicked off, and we didn't know it was going to be, one of the biggest songs in the last sort of 5 years and 2 billion streams and all that. But it had something, and it really did feel when we were writing it. I definitely felt some of that come down. Sometimes with songs and with writing music, I don't have a narrative of complete ownership. Obviously, I'm adding things in, but I have a belief to do with music and sound that a lot of it exists, and we don't get paid. But I think yeah, it's like it's a kind of galactic music pool that we all get to connect into in various different ways, and it really felt like a song came down that night.
Let me tell you, as a receiver, that's exactly how it sounded to the rest of us. It felt like conscious design, divine feminine, I'm feminine. It's just the most empowering lyrics. It's a beautiful song, but then fused with the kind of beat you don't really get for lyrics like that. It was genius. And I feel so lucky to know the guy who co-wrote that.
Yeah.
Any input, Tim, on that?
Thank you.
Well, no, I mean, I loved it. I remember when you first hit the first billion, you let me know, actually, and I remember we had a good laugh about in the most respectful way. But no, I think it's marvelous actually that's had such widespread appeal. I mean, going back to the ego side, I mean, I think he was very honest to what you're talking about, because it's like the aware ego, aware of what we can do, the potency of how we're working. And also to pick up on this aspect of the power of music, the power of sound, etc. The way truly, and I know Cherub and I often talk about this, the way the arts, generally, not even just music, but the arts very much herald changes within society. I mean, I hope we're the sort of you know, we're the what are called the outriders. You know, we're the people in advance of we're the scouts in the cowboys and Indians. Hey man, we're just observing the potential landscape. And ultimately, as you do, as hopefully we all do, we bring our own message, our own voice, our own truth to what we're saying. And again, with full respect, I recognize how unique you are in that regard. I mean, as Cherub knows, I'm not easily impressed by. I mean, I'm almost embarrassed to say I don't know a lot of these people that you're talking about, actually. But nonetheless, when I am aware of what I hear you do, I am very conscious that it's a very beautiful painting of sound that you create with a message, with a vibrancy that does appeal en masse, and full respect to that, Aaron.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, he's right. And actually, those that know Tim know he only likes the Beatles and Marla. So we can add the Beatles, Marla, and Aaron Hort to make you made it in top 3.
Come back.
I mean, I love hearing the way you work. I mean, everything you do is a unique further step. And as I said previously, it does have a unique voice, what you do and what you create. You know, you seem to have almost like a spatial awareness. You know, I'm interested actually to know how you approach it. I mean, I presume you're very much into loops and structure like that. Can you explain how you might approach your technique of creativity, perhaps?
Yeah, I think more and more I try and create. So I've got a room, I'm lucky with lots of stuff, and I make a lot of sounds and I try and play a lot, but without too much structure, which can be scary for some people because people like to sometimes play what they know, but I'm kind of on a finding mission the whole time. And usually what I'm trying to find is like a mistake or something I wasn't expecting, something of beauty. I think it's like that moment when you're waiting for a train, but then you just catch a tree and you can see the leaves and the wind playing in them, and you have that kind of a moment that you weren't expecting, and it just came along. And I think those moments are more true of what maybe I see the essence of the universe as being as than what we experience. Not that there isn't truth in this, but that's just my own sort of strange way of looking at things. And so I'm chasing that. I'm looking for those bits, those moments of beauty. And I found I used to use computers more at the beginning, but I try and minimize computers. I love them, but it was actually not very healthy for my body to sort of be in that position all the time. So instruments have also damaged my body a bit because I play them a lot, but it's more fun and more productive. I think I love playing music with people and recording it and then sort of editing parts of it, and like you were saying, finding loops or finding small progressions that have some sort of a soul, something in them that you want to open up and expand on. You know, the concept of fractals. It's like you find that piece, and then that piece will ultimately have that piece within it, and then that can expand, and then you're trying to present it in a way like putting a story into it. So there's a journey, not just one moment. And yeah, that's kind of the part of the process. And I think part of it as well is not overthinking it. Recently, I've really been trying to just go with the mechanics and try to sing and play at the same time without thinking, which is not what I used to do. I used to really write lyrics and think before. And now I just try and stream of consciousness, timer on 15 minutes, and just try and not think too much and see where the physical space leads us, you know. And it's interesting interacting with AI. More and more we're getting in this space where you can have anything at any time with AI. It can generate all this amazing music, but it's kind of paper thin, and it lacks integrity sometimes, or it lacks meaning. And AI isn't human yet. So so my one up on it is that I've got the problems of having a body and having this voice and this experience. And then if I play and sing, that goes into it, and then I can get some of myself into the space somehow. Because I think our vulnerability and our mistakes and our chaos and our problems, we haven't seen them as being very valuable up until this point in culture. They've been something that people talk about in a negative way a lot. And obviously, problems are problems. But the idea of the dark compass, the idea of the value of your struggle, of your pain, of your problems, and how that roots you in a space, and how that brings an authenticity to what you do, just trying to connect in with that. Because even in the fact that I'm not a great singer and I don't write the best lyrics, and, you know, with all that stuff, there's still something that I can do. And if I'm brave enough to just do it and find it and share it, then that's the little golden nugget in the big riverbank. And I always go back to this thing of saying that we all have it, that we all have this ability to create and to share and to sing and to connect. And it's a beautiful journey to go on, you know. And I guess going back to me as a child as well, because I was in such a musical family, I was often told from early on, like, oh, you know, or maybe I wasn't told, maybe it was inferred, because so many good people were around me, that I wasn't anything special and I wasn't that great at playing or singing or any of this stuff. But I wanted to do it anyway. You know, I wanted to explore that space anyway. And I think people should feel that they can do that, and they can try to get involved in creativity, even if there are people better than them, or even if they're embarrassed about it. And I think more and more with AI and the way that culture is progressing, you know, people's little stories and real stories are really, really valuable, you know. And that's exciting. That's what I like. You know, I like big songs and big productions, but I really, really have always loved strange music that's a little bit vulnerable and a little bit distinct and unique. And that for me is when I talk about the spirituality of music and the expression and the connection, those, I see the archetypes play out on that background of what it is to exist as a human, maybe, you know. But I don't want to get too meta.
But, I mean, I always think of you as possibly the most spontaneous producer I've ever known. And I love that live creativity that you bring to your work, and then you refine it more. And I love that. You know, you find the little cells, the little veins of gold that really, really speak beautifully. But it's fascinating to hear that, you know, you have this deeper insight. As I mentioned at the beginning, for me, I always observe you as somewhat of a philosopher around music and indeed life. And I think that aspect does bring more weight to the creativity that you make. And it's also interesting, actually, you talking about how welcoming you are to everybody creating spontaneous music. And of course, that is nowadays much easier. And I think that's a beautiful thing. It's almost like, do you remember the Andy Warhol once said everybody should be famous for X number of minutes or something in their life?
Yeah, 15 minutes of fame, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like we've almost got that platform for that sort of, let's say, demonstration of who we are musically. And then obviously, different tastes dictate, how many people stream it, buy it, whatever. But deep down, the soul of what you do does come through. I'm also, having said all that, to you as a compliment, what about sounds? How investigative are you, if that's the right word? It's a hard word, well, how are you deeply changing the evolution of the sounds that you're using to create? And your obviously technology is to a degree leaning you towards different explorations. But I get a sense, that you, like many artists, you are evolving constantly. How are you seeing that yourself?
Yeah, there's always an evolution of sound, right? I think the voice is that essential evolution where you're always diving deeper into how you want your voice to sound, how you want to sing, and what sounds you want to use. I've definitely gone down the road of sort of synthesizers and getting into, oh, I want the bigger, more powerful synthesizer. It's yeah, I'm always going to have a little bit of that, but I definitely have come. I'll be honest, but I've definitely come back round to appreciating kind of more tone over excitement, maybe. I've the latest purchase in my studio has been a piano. And I'm sort of just got a record player off eBay the other day, and the synths that I use now are sort of the vintage Japanese Rolands now. I don't have any of the really modern ones because the computer can do all that really well. And I think it's I think part of the sonics, and there's an intersection with the work I did with you guys as well, because the instruments you use are in some ways really simple. They can look quite complex, but they're very, very simple instruments, and the tone and the amount of harmonics a gong can create is really off the charts. If you listen to the big earth gong, especially yours, Tim, you've got that lovely earth gong, and when that's played in a certain way, it's almost sort of infinite harmonics, which is why it can have that effect on the brain, because we cannot expect what's happening. And actually, only one thing is happening. You're hearing the tone of earth, you're hearing C sharp a little bit flatter or sharper. But so the instruments kind of, there's like a commercial consumer aspect when you get into music. You're like, oh, I just need a better synth and that's going to sort my music out. And then you realize, like Bobby McFerrin, if you just whistle the right song, man, it's going to be better than any of these new synthesizers. Not that they're bad. I love you guys, but they're they're essentially tools, and and the same way, if you use simple tools, you can achieve a lot. And I see that people are now doing sort of sound baths with synthesizers, and there are some people who are doing them, yeah, and doing it in quite a sort of simple way, using drones and one note and trying to build up that sort of that harmonics. And obviously I've experimented and you know tried to blend them together, and I've got samples I used. I did a whole sample pack during lockdown of all the sound meditation stuff because I had too much time, and I use them sometimes just to resample and to get those tones. But yeah, I mean, I love the equipment of music as well. I love the technology of it. But I try to do music first. Because sometimes if you get too into the tools, then you become a mechanic, not a driver. And so as much as I like to get into that stuff, I try and keep the music first. So I find myself working sort of simpler and simpler. And again, I have this vision of like the Tim technique, which was like one bag, one bag for the gig, one small carryable bag. How do you do it? Come on. Because you get it.
Stuff.
practical logistic to a degree, and I don't know, my friends say it's a little bit, but great. I mean, on a more serious note on that topic, I'm very much personally into minimum gear now and really making that speak. So Cherub knows at the moment, without all the gizmos and the bells and the whistles and the tinkly sounds we have, I now just take one gong, 2 beaters, and about a dozen different flumies. Flumies are what we call friction beaters. You bring them down the gong and it brings out harmonics, which comes back to, and I love the fact you mentioned tone, the potency and the power of tone, because that's often overlooked, within the whole spectrum of us combining sounds in the forefront of what's going to speak, etc. But the ultimate, as you say, the seed again of where it's going to then speak emotionally to people, and even scientifically, because I'd actually almost like to talk to you about your view these days on frequencies. Where are you seeing this whole movement going that we can all contribute towards assisting people have good vibrations, man?
Yeah, I think tone's essential, isn't it? People talk about it a lot, and it is something you pick up on. Sometimes when I get recordings from other places and stuff, the tone's a bit off, and we got to work on it. We got to bring it back in. Or when you use the wrong mic with a singer, it's just not capturing the tone. I think recently I know I keep referencing AI, it's because I've been using it so much, and it's so scary but so amazing. And one of the things that I found about it is that it doesn't really have a tone. It's paper thin. And this idea of a tone, right? If we just think about a sine wave, okay? You have a sine wave and it just goes like that. And any variation on that sine wave changes it. So you can have a square wave and a sawtooth wave, and each of those is going to have a different tone. But my understanding is that when AI is making these tones, like an MP3, right? When we do this digitization, when you hit the gong, the tone is there, it's present. The sound wave goes out, pow. That sine wave from the gong, energy pressure wave straight out. Now, when you play something from a digital source that's been encoded, every time it goes one bit, it joins to make that tone. On a WAV, high quality audio, maybe there's not too much disruption of that tone. People say that on MP3s, you can hear it because it's doing more or less. It's actually doing less steps, so it becomes to be more squared. It sounds like on AI, bits are coming in from everywhere. There isn't a continuity of tone from a source, from a presence of one moment and one intention, which is where I keep sort of coming back to with this notion. There's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of different versions of stuff. It's a bit like when you go in certain shops and they appear to have lots of food, but it's all sugar, oil, flour, just refined in different ways with a clever package. And it's missing that kind of actual tone, like an actual nutritious base. And some of the music that you guys do, some of the ways that you play, it's like you're providing that base level tonal nutrition, that consistency of tone, and that's where I feel some of this is going to go back to, because obviously there's a lot of value in sound, and it's great if you can just make a computer make it all. But from some of the results they're getting from using AI, I think one of the supermarket chains tried to just, we'll stop paying for music, we'll just AI generate it. And suddenly they had all these complaints. People found it quite uncanny for some reason. So I think people are a lot more tied into tone and the ability of the human ear to detect what's known as maybe authenticity in tone, which if you think about it scientifically, when we were hunter-gatherers, it was really important. And if you were in the forest hunting, if you could hear the difference between a rock falling and the lion and like a lion or a rhino running, or the sound of another human walking up behind you. So our ears are really, really amazing. The way that our ears are connected to our brain and the amount of information we can get from them. We don't really realize that. There's a cool experiment where you can tell if the water's hot or cold by listening to it being poured, because we're all tuned in on that. We can hear the difference between hot water being poured and cold water, and check it out after this. You'll definitely be able to hear it, and that's quite subtle. You're just you know, the particles are just vibrating a little bit faster. So I think the way that our nervous system interacts with tone is something that's going to become more and more relevant to science and healthcare and culture, because as we all get into more of a chaotic consumerist society where everything wants us, our opinion, our judgment, what actually feeds us and what actually connects us it goes back to these kind of organic and very essential things. And it's like when, you know, when you sit next to your own gong, sometimes if you have that moment where it's set up and you can sort of do a little bit of self-treatment, the way that interacts with you compared to the way that other sounds do, you know, that are just coming off any source or the internet or this, or I made this AI thing, and that's where it's interesting, because we've had culture sort of opening up every opportunity. And I think what happens when you have every opportunity, you come back to yourself, you come back to this moment. That's, again, sorry to get meta and esoteric, but that for me is the great mystery, is why are we here? What are we doing here? Why here? Why now, right?
Absolutely. And we all are, you know, we're instructed by our emotions, and that's sometimes the validity of music, that it speaks to our emotions and brings them forth, be it joyous or supporting grief, so many different aspects. And coming back to your analogy of the tone thing, you're quite right. I kept thinking this is the difference between like a really nutritious organic meal and KFC, with apologies to the Colonel, of course.
And there's a time for it, right? There's a time, but you don't have to eat perfect all the time. And if you get too intense about that, then it shuts it down. And that's the whole mystery, is that you need this option of sort of everything to really appreciate what these things that are very nothing and very minimal, and oh, it's just simple. It's just a gong that's being played very, very calmly. And oh, that's so simple. And why would that have this really profound effect? And you know,
Well, yeah, you're right. But going to the gong, just to share with anybody listening to this, I mean, the gong itself, you know, but certainly a big gong is capable of so many harmonics. The spectrum of sound is so broad. It's truly without, again, I love your, is it meta you keep saying, you know, the whole concept.
meta, yeah, I get a little bit too many boxes too outside.
But it is truly a cosmic sound. I believe as many people receive it, it stops the brain. You know, you literally can't. You're so absorbed. It's like diving into a dreaming pool, basically, and then you know you're submerged in this extraordinary universe of sound. And there's the key word for all our constellations: the one song, the universe that surrounds us, and of course that ties in with the music of the spheres, the planets, etc. And this brings us again beyond the wonderful aspect of entertainment and sound and music, but it takes it back to this structural element that can really enhance our well-being, perhaps.
There's a title for your upcoming album, Tim. I've been to the dreaming pools. I love.
You remember?
I'll remember that for you, like everything else, you know, Poggen. There's something that I wanted to come back to what you said earlier, Aaron. You were talking about pain and how you've used that to motivate you to make music. And you said you called it the value of your struggle. And there is struggle and there is pain, there is grief, there is trauma. And what we both admire about you is the way that you can alchemize that and turn it into sonic gold. And we've seen you do it time and time again. And not only that, but the playful nature of your spirit when you're in studio. We've had some amazing long 12-hour studio days from morning into day into night, and the way that you would encourage me to use my voice when it wasn't my strong suit, and next thing you're on the djembe, you're on the flute, turn around, you're on the piano, and you will just give anything a go. It all sounded masterful. And I love what you were talking about earlier, that you just want to encourage people to play. So it really surprised me when you said that in childhood you weren't you weren't noted as a child prodigy, which is what I would have assumed. So how interesting that we've all got this story where we weren't necessarily championed as masterful in music. And Tim has a similar story, I know, me too. So what would you say to our listeners as some advice to get people going, even if they haven't had that support or they don't feel that they've got that creative sense of expression and talent?
Yeah, it's a universal theme, isn't it? And it's a little bit like the finding of yourself out there in the world anyway. I think the best thing to do is give yourself a certain amount of time before you share it. It takes a minute to build up that confidence and to find where your voice sits, or what instrument you feel connected to, or what song you feel connected to. I by no means am a prodigy. I can only play my music. I've never learned how to play music I don't like, or music that's just, hey, play this piece. I can't do it. It doesn't connect with me. But I've found a way of playing my music. And my belief is that everybody has music that they love, sounds that are somehow connected to themselves, and they can involve and share with that. That doesn't mean that initially it's going to be great, because you need to warm these things up, and you need to find your space by making mistakes. So I think giving yourself a soft and cared for place where you can express yourself, maybe on your own if that's how you're comfortable, and just have your practice for your expression, whether that's singing, playing a bowl, playing the piano, humming, chanting, whatever it is. If you can give yourself that space just for a little time every day, that's going to have hopefully a profound effect on your nervous system, and probably on your sense of self. And because it's good to challenge ourselves, and we know that stress, the good type of stress, is important, and that type of stress where you're challenging yourself to connect creatively can be a really positive form of stress. It can also be a space where you channel your challenges, and good parts of your day you can express, and use the sound with gratitude. Whatever it is that you're doing, you can try and express that gratitude, that joy, that love, that connection, and happiness of being alive. Or you can go the other way, which I am often doing, is just trying to offload negativity and challenges that I come up against, and trying to sort of alchemize them, and try to get the feelings out of my body. I make a lot of sad music because I feel sad a lot. And I think lots of people who are very emotional, or who live in the present nowadays, there's a certain amount of sadness in that, and it's good to let it out. We don't all have to carry it with us every day, and we don't have to have people hear it and say, hey, that's good, for it to mean something, um and so I think just giving yourself that moment to be excited, or to be like uh, an adventurer of your own story. Just go on an adventure in a safe place with yourself would be my kind of thing, and connect into the things you like. Don't try and learn music you don't like. Don't try and play music you don't like. Those songs that hit you in the feels, just try and play them. They're often really simple, songs are not that complex, especially very emotive ones. They tend to be like lullabies. I'm paraphrasing you, Tim, now. So I think that's a great start, and I think that's what I got from working with you guys and going on that course that you did all those years ago, was that I was approaching music, and often there was an outcome. It was make a song for money, or this band, or try to do this, and I lost a bit of that connection, and to get it back, coming back to that place that you guys hold, and that consciousness of elements of connection, and connection with the self, and also as a simple offering. When you hold a sound space for people, it's a simple offering. It's not it doesn't have to be a hugely complex space with detailed lyrics, or a huge sort of plan and stage. And I know you guys do some lovely staging, and some complex stuff, but it's quite a simple, humble offering, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. And as our culture becomes more and more complex, and there's this, to get the food analogy, it's like these amazingly complex food dishes with every single flavor and it's so overwhelming. You just a small piece of bread that someone's calmly made. I often go back to that thing. That's where I'm most comfortable. I don't feel very comfortable in very sort of constructed or I don't know, overly processed musical spaces. I know that I can do some simple things and that I can connect in and support other people who are making music and that's where I'm safe and that's a nice place. And so yeah, I think that it's always easy to start and it's always easy to be mean and say you can't do it and you won't be able to immediately, but just give yourself a chance, you know?
Beautiful.
Beautifully said. Thank you. I really hope that that's inspired everyone at home to just pick it up and play or open your mouth and make shape to sound and see what happens. Erin, what's next for you? Have you got any projects up and coming that you haven't spoken about yet? Anything you haven't told people about that you can look forward to?
At the moment, I've got loads of music coming out. I'm really blessed. The record label that I have, Crate Classics with Jamie Rodigan, we do a lot of jungle stuff, but I also put out my ambient things on there as well. And we work with young artists. Um, and we've just got loads of records coming out next year, which is great. I'm just trying to finish off records all the time and trying to create some time to make records as well as finishing them and yeah, I just appreciate everybody who takes time to listen to it and enjoys it and gives feedback or anybody who's interested in working with me or collaborating. I know that it's only as far away as like an Instagram DM now, which is great. And yeah, I've got loads of records coming out next year and I'm really excited about some of them and I'm personally just enjoying singing more and sort of taking it right back to the beginning, and hopefully playing some gongs as well. So yeah,
Amazing. Looking forward to hearing all of it.
thank you.
Erin, I mean, aside from creating music yourself, I mean, what do you listen to? Do you have time to listen to other music? Because I mean,
Yeah.
I don't very much, I have to confess, because I'm so absorbed in my own language, try to evolve, etc. But do you actually have things you might listen to that?
Yeah, definitely. I'm always listening to like loads of classic sort of pop music and songwriting from things like Wu-Tang to Tracy Chapman to the Beatles. Again, I'm a big Beatles fan. We love them. So I think I really enjoy having music going all the time. I've been getting back to that again where I'm just putting music on and I have definitely been favoring some of the more historic stuff. Sometimes the modern stuff it's hard to find bits in there, but I have found some great modern artists as well. I love modern dance music and modern drum and bass and jungle, and then I listen to a good amount of ambient and classical stuff as well. I'm not as deep in Mahler as as you are yet, Tim, but I do enjoy a bit of I like a bit of Debussy and just kind of a bit of classic piano and impressionist stuff. Yeah.
All of it, sort of all.
Interesting, because in a way, the landscapes you so beautifully create within your studio are very impressionistic, actually, thinking about it. Now you've used that word, actually.
Yeah, I definitely draw from those sources. I really like the way that Debussy sets up that imagery through his sound and composition.
And amazing harmonies and chords and textures and just emotions. It's like a beautiful stream undulating round corners and stuff, isn't it? It just moves and takes you with it.
Well, Brucey, but have you ever heard of De Bowie? Tim and I were at Artin Ware's Heaven 17 concert last week, and they played an epic Let's Dance cover. And then Tim said, "Oh, I really do enjoy that De Bowie track." It's like, I don't think anyone's ever called him De Bowie before. David Battle, his full name. Erin, I have a couple of final questions to end on. What is your favorite natural sound?
Probably water, rain or the sea. I love the sound that water makes. A big water fan.
I think that could be a track title for Opal Blue. I love the sound that water makes. I'll leave that one with you. And final question is, what is your greatest hope for the future?
Ooh, that's a big one. Yeah, I think just peace, for people to be at peace. I think there's a lot of chaos at the moment in people and in the world, and in myself. And I think that I'm trying to move towards a peaceful existence and connection. And I hope that for the world, and I hope to be involved in the soundtrack of that with you guys.
Oh, beautiful, Aaron. Thank you so much for an amazing chat. We could have done days of that. From hit records to healing frequencies, you are the absolute embodiment of sound power.
Yeah, you are. You're amazing.
Thank you so much. Amazing to talk.
As Cherub says, actually, yeah, we could keep going, couldn't we? We should have sort of volumes of this fundamentally, because I mean, we're scratching the surface of where all this topic goes in terms of the power of sound, the power of music, aren't we? Really?
Yes.
It's wonderful to recognize you and Cherub and other people. We're the heralds and the pioneers of what we can do to change and help society, support it, basically, emotion.
You heard it here first, guys. Aaron Horn's greatest hope for the future is peace on love and audio, obviously. Thank you, guys. Amazing to chat to you. Let's sit back in the studio.
Yeah, let's do it.
Been great to see you. Peace and love, man.
Bye.
On audio.
See you guys.